Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. And today we're going to be looking at the latest Rasmussen poll that just dropped. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And so this model or poll, is a very accurate pollster because they were able to get the average basically spot on back in 2020 alongside Rich Barris and the big data poll. They were able to get it pretty much in line. I think Rich had Biden plus 4.1 as his final poll, and Rasmussen's final average of polling was about plus 5.2 for Biden. So they were really one of the most accurate forecasters in terms of their national polling. And right now, we got a new poll with Donald Trump up by 2. And this one's going to be a little bit different from the last one because it seems like Donald Trump has gained a lot with college-educated voters. I mean, New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, those states were already competitive in the last video. They already were, and the Sun Belt was relatively already likely. But now, you're going to see in this new poll that Donald Trump gaining 2 in the popular vote really helped him out. He really improved with non-college voters in the last week. And yes, some of the crosstabs are strange, like Trump only up 2 with white voters. Like, that's weird. Up with Hispanics by 20. That's kind of strange. Black voters, by around 31. Like, that's a little, that's strange, right? And you see the cross-party data. He's winning independents pretty easily. So it's like, are those accurate race demographics? No, but when you look at the education demographics and you look at the gender demographics and you look at the age demographics, when you weigh everything out, when you put all the demographics together using 4 different maps from 538 and you average everything out, it gives you a consensus of what the map should look like. All of the crosstabs should kind of cancel out. I'm not saying Trump's going to win whites by 2, but I like to model out Rasmussen reports' polling because they tend to be somewhat accurate on the national level. And I want to show what their polling would look like on an electoral map. And so to start out, we have Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, Nebraska at large, and the 1st and 3rd congressional district. You have Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, as well as South Carolina and Alaska. That is also there too. We also can look at the state of Ohio and put that in the safe Republican column at 16 points for Donald Trump. So that is another, impressive feat there. That is another really, really impressive electoral college victory. Looking at the state of Iowa, that is also going to be in the safe Republican column as well. That is another one that will go in the safe column. And the state of Texas. So this is kind of already matching up, as well as Maine second. So this is already matching up with my safe Republican states already. This is already matching up with that. Now, looking at the safe Democrat states, we have California at just 16 points for Harris. We have the state of Hawaii coming in right now at roughly 15 points as well for Harris. D.C. at 71 points. Maryland at just 21 points. Massachusetts at 25 percentage points. And there was Maryland polling that had numbers pretty similar to that fairly recently, by the way. Vermont, around a 29-point victory in the state of Vermont, which gives Harris only 85 safe electoral college votes. Looking at the likely Republican states, we have Florida at 14 points for Donald Trump. We have Arizona at just about 10 points for the former president. Georgia at 11 points right now. We have the state of North Carolina coming in at just 11 points. It actually votes to the left of Georgia by literally 0.1%. And the North Carolina mail-in data is looking really bad for Democrats. I mean, their lead was essentially pretty much cut in half, pretty much. It is pretty nuts. It is definitely something. The lead basically was almost cut in half in the mail-in data for Democrats coming in now. So that is also interesting. Wisconsin plus 6.8. That actually roughly aligns with what my polling average in the state is right now. Michigan, according to this, would be a 5.3 percentage point win. The state of Pennsylvania, about 7.1, so it's voting to the right of Wisconsin by a little bit. And I think that's also fascinating, too, because, Donald Trump is performing better with Hispanic and African Americans nationwide. And so that definitely may reflect in Nevada, the same thing. And you got to keep in mind, guys, Donald Trump in a lot of these states is polling a lot better than what he was back then. And the states where, for example, the RCP average has Arizona and Georgia competitive, the samples have gotten way bluer than what they were in 2020. You're talking about like D plus favorable samples in Arizona and Georgia. And so those states might be off by a couple points come election day. Looking at the likely Democrat states, you got Oregon, Washington. You have Illinois in that column as well, coming in at just about 7 points for Harris. Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island in that column. New Jersey will also be in the likely column at just about 5 points for Harris. New York at 12. I mean, that's where we have it. In our poll we did about a month ago, that's where we have the state of New York essentially. And Maine's first is going to be in that likely Democrat column as well. Just around 9 points. And so funny enough, this is kind of matching up what I have in my polling data map. I mean, Wisconsin, it's kind of iffy. And in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and my average, they're lean states. But even Pennsylvania, the average is like 4. In Michigan, that one's the one that may be a bit off. But like overall, I'm in line. My polling averages that I have for the states and the national level are basically in line with what I have right now, effectively. I mean, it's basically in line with what I have. Now, looking at some of these more competitive states, Colorado comes in at 4 points for Harris, which is interesting. In the last video, I believe it was 6.5 for Harris in the last poll, so it's not like it shifted a lot to become lean. Looking at Maine at large, it's actually still lean Democrat, just 3 points. Donald Trump does do worse with whites by quite a bit compared to 2020 in the racial demographics, so that's why he is performing a little bit worse in Maine at large. But my polling average does have Maine at large as like a 2.4 percentage point win, so that is pretty interesting. And when you look at New Hampshire, right now it is a tilt Democrat state. That's currently where I have it at in my forecast, by the way. If we look at onpointpolitics.com, we can see that I have the state right about at a tilt margin there. And looking at, some of these other states, Nebraska second is in the lean Democrat column right now. I mean, or Republican column. I have it narrowly going to Harris, but right now it is in the lean Republican column. And looking at Nebraska's looking at New Mexico, this is interesting as well. A lean margin for Donald Trump in the state. Again, something very interesting to point out. I mean, I have the state as a tilt margin in my polling average. And so he may be picking up something that we're not. And, if New Mexico's voting red, Colorado will definitely be closer than before. I mean, you do have similar Hispanic demographics in both states. There's way more Hispanics in New Mexico, but the share of, certain Hispanic groups are fairly similar in both states. Virginia, this is an interesting one because according to this, it does actually go Republican by a tilt margin. And funny enough, my polling average for the state of Virginia, when you added in that new Washington poll from Virginia, it is a really bad sample. And so when you factor it into the average, Donald Trump is actually up in the state of Virginia by a tilt margin in my average. I have him up by 0.5% in my polling average, and he's up here by 0.2%. And looking at Minnesota, he's actually winning Minnesota right now too. And my polling average in Minnesota has gotten a lot closer. Harris is only up there by like 1.5 points. And so, funny enough, this is not that far off from what I have in my polling averages. I mean, I have Harris plus 1.2 in my average, and this is 0.3. Virginia plus 0.2 for Trump here, and I have plus 0.5. Trump 2.5 here, and I have Harris plus 0.5 in the state of New Mexico. New Hampshire, I think I have Trump up 2 in the average, and here he's down 0.8. And Maine at large, I have that in my polling average is 2.3. Here it's literally 3.2%. And the other states kind of align with what I have in my forecast. I mean, it's not that off. Rasmussen is probably slightly to the right. And maybe when I add in, Rasmussen's model map into my demographic modeling, maybe we'll get something interesting to see what happens. But right now, Donald Trump is performing very well according to the latest Rasmussen poll and is winning in a pretty modest election victory you know, compared to previous elections. I mean, Virginia, New Hampshire, basically these are the toss-ups. Effectively, these are the toss-ups, which I do have them as toss-ups effectively. I mean, they're all under 5 at this point in time, so it is very plausible. And Pennsylvania is on the brink of being a likely margin, including Nevada too. Like, they're very close. In Michigan, I have it as R+3 and change. I have it as like R+3.5, and the model has it at +5. Like, my map is not that different from Rasmussen. It's probably like a point to the right of what I have, essentially. And so, if you guys did enjoy this video analyzing the latest Rasmussen poll and what it looks like on an electoral college map, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And I will see you guys in the next video.